say.
Good to know these new rules as I become more acclimated to the whys and wherefores of the Toastmasters book. I have the pleasure of introducing Jesse Sutton today, who will be giving his speech on fact-finding report, Speaking to Inform, titled The Trump Perception, talking about Donald Trump as a presidential candidate. And I'm curious to see how his interpretation will be, whether it will be toward full of passion advocating for this, or more frightening and concerned against that, or somewhere in between, talking about other people's perceptions of this candidate. Please welcome Jesse Sutton.
Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. So there will be a 2 to 3 minute question and answer session at the end of this. Though I am not an expert, so I will do my best to answer your questions.
Jesse, how does Andrew time that then? 5 to 7 minute speech and
Yes,
then
5 to 7 minute speech and
afterwards?
a 2 to 3 minute question and answer.
Thank you.
So, as you all know, it has been a very torrid election season with these primaries and lots of fors and against and lots of put downs and lots of smear tactics. And I've kind of stayed out of it. I don't want to hear it. I don't really care. But now we're getting down to the point where Donald Trump appears to be the candidate of choice on the Republican side. And if this man becomes president, what is it going to be like? Is this somebody I could vote for? Is this somebody that I want leading the country that I live in? Do I need to start looking for jobs in other countries? Do I need to expatriate? What am I going to do? And so I did a little bit of research to find out, okay, what is this man? What's he going to be like as president? Is it going to be as terrible as some people in the media say? Is it going to be as wonderful as some people in the media say? And there's lots of different issues and things we could look at. And so I put together a quick list of pros and cons of Donald Trump as president. And this is taken from a couple websites, debate.org, and there's another site called Quora.com where people can kind of post questions and get feedback. And I also went out to Newsweek and Politico and Real Clear Politics to get information about what does the landscape really look like with Donald Trump. So the list of pros and cons, depending on where you fall on the political scale, the pros can be cons and the cons can be pros, and they kind of intertwine, especially with Mr. Trump. So I'll just go through the list and kind of give my take on what I see and from my research. So the first pro that we have for Donald Trump is his experience. He actually has done something with his life. Unlike many political candidates who all they do is get people to vote for them and try to make laws, but they don't really have any real world experience. So Donald Trump actually has that going for him. And he has his own unique way of going about that. And so the first con for Mr. Trump is he's a little bit crazy. You don't know what's really going on in his head. He's a little bit of a wild card. So that could be a big con, is you don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. But that leads to the next pro, is he's actually candid. You don't have to wonder what Mr. Trump is thinking. You get it. And so, good or bad, it's actually something that's kind of refreshing. And it also leads to the next pro, which he's not a politician. Politicians, you don't know where they're standing because they're trying to appease this group over here without offending this group over here. And for all observations of Mr. Trump, he doesn't do any of that. He will just bowl over anybody if they're in his way. And so at least you know what you're going to get. You don't get somebody who's wishy-washy on issues because he's trying to pander to all the different groups. And with 300 million people in this country, there's a lot of different groups, and you can't appease them all. But on top of that, or the con that goes along with that, is he can be very abrasive. And depending on what group you're for or against, he can be very abrasive to your views. But in other ways, he may not be abrasive. So it largely depends on what issues matter most to you. And for at least half of the people that are polled, he seems to fall on their side of things. If you look at the polling data, he's about neck and neck with Hillary Clinton in a general election. I think Hillary is, according to Real Clear Politics, she's about 4 percentage points above him right now, which statistically probably isn't a whole lot when it comes to a political poll. Another big con for Mr. Trump is he makes uninformed comments. So he may just fly off with whatever he thinks, and it's probably not based on a whole lot of fact. It's not something that he's dealt with. If it's business or real estate matters or casino running, he probably has an informed opinion. But when it comes to some maybe world politics, world affairs things, he seems to be not always very informed in those. So another pro for him is that he is a deal maker. Going back to his business dealings, he can negotiate, and he has business savvy, which, dealing with political leaders and world affairs, being able to negotiate and to be able to advocate for the American people is a good thing for him. And we also know from his history that he's had business failures, which that can be a pro and a con. Yes, he's failed, but he's also a billionaire. So he's winning some way, and he knows how to win. And he also knows what it's like to lose. And sometimes these politicians, they don't deal with loss very well. And so someone who can not get his way, he can deal with that because he's been through that in life. Another pro is he's very decisive. So, like I said before, if it's something he thinks in his mind, he's going to go with it, and it may not be very popular, but at least he has an opinion and he's going to go with it. But that also shows a lot of his egotism. He's very egotistical, so he thinks very highly of himself and his opinion, and that may be a big con for many people. Why is he taking this position? And a lot of times it's going to boil down to that's what he wants. And that may not be what's best for the American people. So that is a big con. But the last pro is he has nothing to hide. He's not one of these politicians that he's going to get into office and then we're going to find out all these dirty facts. They're already out there. We already know all the dirty facts about Donald Trump. He doesn't hide them. He wears everything on his sleeve. So at least we know what we're going to get. If Hillary becomes president, who knows whatever else is going to come out. She's already steeped in scandal. What else is out there? Bill Clinton is going to come along with her. And what other cans of worms are going to come up there? But with Donald Trump, I'm pretty sure that there's not going to be any political skeletons in his closet. Number one, because he's not a politician, and also just because you know what he's thinking. He doesn't beat around the bush when it comes to that. So that's my list of pros and cons for Donald Trump. It's still pretty scary of what would this world be like. At least we have checks and balances in this country, so there is the judicial system, and there is Congress that can veto or take back any bills he vetoes. So at least we have that. So I'm going to open up to questions now.
In your research, did you find anything that would say or indicate his ability to work with politicians, as you mentioned there in that last comment, being able to work both sides of the aisle?
That would be, I think, a major issue for him, being able to work with, and that should have made it into my con list, is, like I said, he knows what he wants, and I don't think that he's going to be able to back down from those positions. So that would be an issue for him.
Any sense on how the global community feels about the prospects of Trump as president?
It seems to be all negative, from what I see. The Chinese, I'm sure, are very worried because he's talking about putting in tariffs, new tariffs, which he has no authority to do anyway. Congress gets to set those. So, but also our relations with Mexico would be an issue because of some of his policy positions. So, two of our biggest trade partners, or at least two of the biggest countries that we trade with, that would be an issue. So it's not so good on that front. Any other questions?
What's the most surprising thing you learned in your research?
Well, all along, I've been very surprised about the support he gets, just from different people, and it's this man who isn't very popular, but is also, on the other hand, very popular. So he's, I don't know, it's a little bit of an enigma of how has he come to this point? And a lot of it, I'm sure, has to do with his personality, which could also get in the way of his presidency. So it's kind of scary and also a little bit refreshing, I guess, that there is going to be someone who's a real person, not a career politician that gets put into office. And I can see how a lot of people would relate to that. They don't maybe relate so well to all these Yale graduates who, they went to Yale on family money, they get right into politics, and they have never really worked a real job. And so, well, Trump has been a billionaire businessman, at least he has real work experience.
Is his hair real?
Probably a little bit of real, a little bit of fake, I don't know. Looks pretty fake.
So a little
Last
about,
question.
I guess a little what's being said is that he appeals, and you say it too, that, you know, he appeals to a lot of the interests of many groups, but most of the people are saying that he is appealing to uneducated classes and groups of people. And then you see the other spectrum like Stephen Hawking and, you know, scientists and the world saying that's not a good thing. It's kind of scary to see that he is actually having a momentum from all of these people, and at the end, if he becomes president, it will be something that is not good. How do you, after doing your research, how do you feel about it? Which way do you?
Well, like I said, I am thankful that there are checks and balances, that we don't have a dictatorship, and he can write executive orders all day long, he can veto bills, but they'll just go back to Congress, and if there's enough support, they'll get passed without him. And the judicial branch, and I wanted to look up and see, you know, what keeps him from starting a nuclear war, and there's got to be people there that can stop him, which I don't believe that he would want to do that. That's fear some people have, but I think it's a little overblown that he would start a nuclear war. But with his ego, you never know. So that is a little scary. But thank you.